Any second.
It's actually saying it's live. Okay.
Awesome. All right. Well, welcome everybody to Thirsty Thursday, Bright Ideas Happy Hour, Small Business Happy Hour. I'm really excited to reconnect on screen with Christina and Noel. She and I have not seen each other in way too long. There's so much that's been going on in both of our lives and our businesses. I just couldn't be more excited to welcome her. Christina, welcome.
Well,
Cheers.
thank you.
5 o'clock.
Cheers.
Somewhere. It's 5 o'clock here, girl. Let's do this.
Right. It's time.
So tell us all about you. Some people who are watching definitely know who you are, but especially for those who don't, tell us all about your, I guess, latest endeavors, as well as maybe a little bit about your path to get here.
Okay. Sounds awesome. It's so funny when people are like, who are you? And it's like, how do you put yourself into a package? I'm multifaceted. But no, I've nailed this down. I'm a marketing strategist. So these things are important. So I'm actually a marketing strategist, business coach, personal brand photographer. That's like my side hustle, and keynote speaker.
Awesome.
Yeah. And basically, we'll start with the why. My goal in life is to help mission-driven founders and organizations thrive so they can bring their vision to life, create amazing jobs, and make a positive impact. I mean, that's pretty much like purpose is what drives me.
Yes.
And I do that in two main ways. So I run Noel Co. It's a mission-driven marketing and strategy consultancy that works with world-changing organizations. And basically, we work with them to successfully go to market, whether that be launching new products or services or getting their company out there.
Yep.
Also, and I know you and I have talked about this a little bit, but I also am the founder of the Figure Your Shit Out Accelerator.
Cuss on our show. It's okay.
Okay, cool. I know. I have to beforehand. So it's kind of like exactly what it sounds like. It is the first program for early stage mission-driven founders. And our focus is really creating a safe space to test your ideas, hone your business model, and figure your shit out in community.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I freaking love figure your shit out. It is my heart. And okay, so now your question of how, like the secondary question is, how did I get here? And this is actually one of my favorite stories to tell. I was, interestingly enough, at a bar on the patio. And if anyone's ever been to Atlanta, it was the Virginia Highlands neighborhood.
Okay.
So cute. It's like very family friendly and beautiful. And I was sitting with a friend and I was stressed out. I wasn't happy at my job. And I just didn't, I feel like a lot of us have been there in our lives. We're just like, what do? I don't know where I want to go. And that friend asked me the question that changed my life. They asked, what would you do? Well, it's like, they were just like, what would you do if you didn't have to worry about money?
Ooh.
And I was like,
oh, that's a good question.
Isn't that a good question? Like I had literally never thought of it. I had never thought of that question. I mean, my parents, they're, very responsible, both worked in healthcare. I feel like it was like, go get educated, get a good job, pay the bills. But the minute I was asked that question, I knew the answer immediately.
What did you say?
I loved volunteering. I loved helping people. And the answer was, I'm like, I just want to change the world. I just want to help people. Like, that's it. Full stop.
Yep.
And after that, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I decided to be strategic. I was like, all right, well, I figured the only way to do that was to go work in nonprofits. So I was like, well, if I'm going to work in nonprofits, I'm going to run one. So I was like, I'm going to go get my MBA. And then in researching MBA programs, I discovered social entrepreneurship. And I was fascinated. I'm like, oh, you can build a business and make money? It just feels like a major win-win. And the cool thing is, okay, so I had this like whole epiphany. It was terrifying at the time. It's fun now to be like, I wanted to change the world. But I'm blonde, I'm bubbly. Like people definitely thought I was naive. Like
I'm not blonde, but I'm with you on the bubbly and naive.
People were like, you're going to change the world, like idealist.
Bless your heart.
Exactly. cool thing is like I landed a life-changing internship with B Lab, this nonprofit behind the B Corp movement. I've
We
never
talked
heard of.
about that last week with Emma Browning.
Did you? Oh my God, I love Emma.
I love Emma too. Emma, if you're watching, we love you.
Me too. Yeah. Okay. Well, so you hopefully know B Corps. The B stands for benefit.
We will be one someday. We're not there yet. Actually, that was kind of like the gist of my conversation. One of the gist of my conversations with Emma was about small businesses and having, wearing so many hats that we tend to not have the resources to kind of pursue all of that. It takes a little bit longer to kind of get going. But I mean, that's why I left my job in RTP, essentially, was, to work with my husband and to create a company that was going to change the world.
And you're doing it. And it's so inspiring. I love it. Because I mean, at the end of the day, business is powerful. Like, business is one of the strongest forces in our world. Mm-hmm. And also, like, you spend more time at work than you do with your friends and family.
Right.
And so why shouldn't that mean more than just making a profit? Agreed. Possibly for someone else, like, plus, like, it's actually good business. So I when I give a keynote speech, I often like point out the statistic: 76% of millennials think about a company's social and environmental impact before deciding where to work. So like, the millennial generation is like demanding that companies have a heart and have some kind of purpose and make some kind of impact. Mm-hmm. And so, on top of that, there's a whole like crisis of engagement. People aren't engaged at work because they don't care. So it's like, give people something to care about.
Right.
Yeah. So I interned with B Lab. That was when I was sold. I got to audit 10 different mission-driven companies over a summer. And I was like, yes. Like, the pivotal moment was I got to audit Ben & Jerry's.
What?
Yes. Like, I guess I've never told you this story.
Did you get to taste test too? I mean, that would be like,
yes.
That's part of auditing them, right? Is tasting.
Oh, 100%. We're like, we absolutely need to see your facilities. And they took us on a behind the scenes tour. It was freaking awesome. We went to like the non-tourist facility. Like, we had this great tour guide. He was like opening up vats of ice cream and like, he's like, smell the chocolate. Wow. And it was like, I have died and gone to heaven. Like, other than my wedding, that is like the best day of my life. Like, I was losing my shit. I was like, this is my life dream. And then they're like, do you want ice cream off the line? And I'm like, yes, I want all of the flavors. It was so great. And then we got to talk to their employees and hear how Ben & Jerry's had changed their lives and was impacting the community. And I mean, it's so much more. It's not just about ice cream. It's about, they built their community's economy. They drive tourism. Yeah. They source ethically. They take care of their employees. Like, it's just, you can create a great product, but if you can build an amazing company around it, it's game changing, and Ben & Jerry's is just, they're the penultimate. They have like their 3-part mission. They're so fun and quirky. I'm obsessed with their branding. I digress. I could talk about Ben & Jerry's for way too long, but I mean, that was it. I was like, I'm obsessed with the B Corp movement. Yep. So the cool thing is I got to move home. I'm from North Carolina. Yeah. And I landed a job at a B Corp in basically an RTP. And that's when we met. They're fascinating. They're called the Redwoods Group. Mm-hmm. And their whole mission is to create safe communities for all, with like a specialty in keeping kids safe. And the way they do that is they ensure youth serving organizations. So the YMCA, Boys and Girls Clubs, Jewish community centers, nonprofit summer camps. I mean, it was such a cool place to work. Basically their mission was preventing child sexual abuse and promoting aquatic safety. And so I had a background in consulting. So they brought me on as a consultant, and I did that for a while, like working with 50 YMCAs, traveling all around Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Georgia, which is a lot.
That is a lot.
and fascinating on many levels. And then ultimately I finally like worked my way into the role I really wanted, which is I love strategy and marketing, which it's kind of stayed consistent, hasn't it?
Sure has.
And I got to do some really, really cool strategic projects and help them with their business development process. But here's the thing. Even at Redwoods, I still felt like I wanted to be doing more. And it's so interesting, like if you talk about intuition, like going into my MBA program, I always knew I was like, it's just like this whisper, it's like learn how to start a business. And so I knew deep down I wanted to be a social entrepreneur. And so my husband for my birthday bought me a laptop to start like playing around with ideas. And then I got the idea. I was like, I want to learn photography. So actually that's where my photography side hustle comes from.
Awesome.
And then to learn photography, I was like, oh, I have to take free photos. You have to like learn how to do the thing.
Yeah.
And I started this storytelling project where I was like, well, if I'm going to take free photos, of course I should take free photos of people changing the world. And that's how this project called Arc-Benders got started. And essentially it was inspired by Humans of New York. We like interviewed people who were changing the world. I took their photo if they were local. But what I didn't know going in is how much it would change my life. Like to hear people's purpose, like I obviously was working at a B Corp. I loved what we did.
Right.
And I still felt like I wasn't truly living my purpose. Like I knew that there was so much more I could be doing. And for like me and my husband, he always like, when I met my husband, I was like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur one day, just FYI. I'm like, you need to know what you're getting into. And the crazy thing is when you're not doing the work, like if you're not truly living your purpose, like you end up not happy, even at an amazing organization, even when you're doing amazing work. And so we'd always been like, oh, in 2 years, I'll start a business, and we're just going to keep pushing it out. And all of a sudden, like there were changes happening at work. And my husband's like, what are you doing? Like, what do you want to do? And he's like, why don't you just do it? Like, why don't you just, and I was like, yeah, I'm like, I just want to go like figure my shit out, hit. Like, go figure out how to be an entrepreneur and do the storytelling project, which by the way, I don't actually recommend this as a strategy for anyone. Like, do not quit your job.
And then storytelling project. I don't know. Sometimes the only way to figure it out though is to not have a plan B, right?
I know.
Parachute all the time, then you just know you always can play that card. Sometimes you just maybe. It is a little crazy.
It is true. I know. I mean, you are right from that standpoint. It's like I don't regret the path that I took. It was obviously the one I was meant to. I kept telling stories. I started freelancing as a marketer. And I like raised money to go on a road trip to take Arc-Benders like out of North Carolina.
Yes.
And I mean, my big thing that I came away from that was I was like, I really want to be happy. And if I'm like going to be in this for the long haul, like going to like help people change the world, which can get heavy, right? Like,
yeah,
if you actually literally put the world on your shoulders, that is exhausting.
Right.
And
I mean, if you're hearing how people are changing the world and you're hearing what's really wrong with it, the depths of the bad stuff that's initiating the desire to want to change it. Right. And then there's responsibility. You're totally right.
It's so much. And also here was the really hard thing was I had been dreaming of this for like years, right? Like, so it was 2018. I went back to grad school 2012. I mean, we're talking like 6 to 7 years. I've been like dreaming of this moment of like getting to quit. And I was so excited.
Yeah.
And then it was lonely and I got depressed and I didn't know what I was doing. And, I'm type A, I'm very organized, like I execute. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm in my own head. I don't have a strategic plan. I don't know what I'm doing. When people ask me, what's your plan? I'm like, storytelling project. I'm like, I don't even know if I want to run a media company. Oh my God. And the hardest part was the loneliness. It was like part loneliness and then part like lack of strategic support. because I didn't want a co-founder. There's benefits of that, but I just didn't want a co-founder. But I also like, I mean, you still need people. Like collaboration is powerful. And so that's actually how Figure Your Shit Out started.
Yep.
Interestingly, like I basically do the same work in consulting and in Figure Your Shit Out. It's just for, Figure Your Shit Out's for early stage company. The consulting work is for more established. And so you're getting like, my Noel Co branding's a bit more corporate. Just a little. I know how to act like an adult, guys. But I mean, Figure Your Shit Out. I mean, it's a gap. So it's a major gap in the ecosystem, entrepreneurial ecosystem. So you have accelerator programs for any high growth company. So say you're like, I want to build a company that's going to employ 100 people. Like, you're good. There's like great resources out there for you. If you want to start a consultancy or like a small business and you don't know if you want to grow it and you don't know if you want investors, there is like SCORE. And then like that's kind of like it. And with SCORE, it's a nonprofit, and you don't know what you're gonna get.
Right.
And there, and that was it. Like, and then there's, of course, there's co-working spaces, which are communities, but still, also, if you're really early stage, even that can be a stretch to invest in. And so that's how Figure Your Shit Out came to be. I was like, there needs to be a strategic support system. I had run startup weekends. So it's not like I just like all of a sudden was like, oh, I'm a founder, I'm just going to do startups. Like I had been, I majored in marketing for new business entrants in my MBA. I had like volunteered with startup weekends. I knew the entrepreneurial process. But what I found as an entrepreneur is even when you know the process, it is hard to eat your broccoli when it's just you. It is hard when you're in your head. But if you can just get out of it and you can find people who are like you, who are mission aligned, who are, honestly safe. Like the entrepreneurship system, let's just call it what it is. It's kind of bro-y.
Yeah.
And it's not very inclusive.
Agreed.
And it's intimidating, it's like high growth and ego and I'm going to get a big investor and grow. And it's, the B Corp movement is the opposite. It's like, what's your impact? How are you going to change the world? Oh, I feel guilty getting paid, even though I have a lot of value that I bring.
Right.
Yeah. We have a very unique, very common set of challenges that we have as mission-driven people. And serving that group. So I started with a pilot, ran it for 90 days. I figured out 90 days was way too aggressive. And, but we learned a ton. What I learned, the funniest thing that I learned is, I was so excited. I like made a curriculum. It was really intense. And I'm like, yeah, they're going to get this, they're going to get the process. 90% of the value is community. It's like Christina is not about what it helps. The strategy helps. And mostly it's the loneliness that, like having community, having support. Yeah. And having a place where like you don't have to have the answers, where like no one's going to be like, what are you doing? And then if you say, I don't know, that's fine. Like, great. Honestly, I would rather get you into FISO early. Yep. So you don't get obsessed with an idea. You get obsessed with what problem you want to solve. And then we make it safe to pivot. Because pivoting's painful. So like when I went from telling a storytelling project to being like, I'm a marketing consultant. People were like, what about this? And I'm like, I pivoted, it's not a big deal, but still like in the real world, it's just, everyone has how you show up in the world, which is like your personal brand. And you should think about, it's like dress to impress. Think about how you show up, have, know your answer to the question of what do you do or what are you doing, at least for now. But then you also need like your besties where you're like, this is hard. Like I'm struggling.
There's a handful of my friends right now that I promise are watching, and we call it the vault. That's where I can go and talk about how my day really was.
Right. The secret is like the one trick with having an accelerator called Figure Shit It Out is like the real secret is no one has it figured out.
Right.
It's just you keep, you know, you figure some stuff out and then you hit a new phase where you're like figuring something else out. But at least if you get your people.
What I say.
I mean, I love the idea of the vault though too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, people need to, it's like, can we all just stop pretending and be real?
Right. I'm with you. That's been one of the, I mean, speaking totally authentically, like that has been a really tough part of me pivoting into having my own company and representing the brand, because I promise you, whenever somebody asks me, how's business going, whether it's going great or not, I'm going to tell them it's awesome, you know, or I'm going to say it's great and we're working through some challenges, but I'm going to accentuate the positive because I don't want them to lose faith in me. I don't want them to think that I'm not doing my job. Like 100% I'm doing my job. But being an entrepreneur is hard, you know, and you know, I'm a big student of Brene Brown, and she talks about how like when you're in the ring, you know, and you're getting your ass beat, you know, it's, you need people and community and confidence in yourself to know that you're going to get back up again and keep going, and to not listen to the people, the voices, the cheap seats in the back that sometimes have opinions about things, you know, and that's it. I think if you follow Bright Ideas on Facebook, it probably seems like we are, you know, uber successful and life is a party and we're really good at our jobs. We work extremely hard and we don't share about our failures. You know, we don't share publicly about the things that are really a challenge. You know, we just don't, because we don't want people to know that, you know, not that we have to hide it. We're not hiding it. But that's what you want to lead with, you know, but I agree with you that like even us talking about it now, I'm totally comfortable talking about this now because I think it normalizes it for people, right? Like we have issues, big ones. I promise.
We all do. Like, we all do. But the hard part is like at Bright Ideas, like your job is to make other people's lives easier. So you don't want to dump on your clients. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I love, I highly recommend the book Story Brand and the podcast Story Brand, because they talk about like, if you're a service business, your customer is your hero and you are like the guide. You are Yoda.
I love it.
And I mean, Luke does not want Yoda complaining about his problems.
Right. Yoda like loses a little bit of street cred if he's complaining.
Yoda needs friends too. Like Yoda needs his mental health dealt with as well. I mean, Luke
is such a bonehead. Why doesn't he get it already? Yeah. It's true. It's true. I love that you're creating that because it is very real. I find in my own business that you can throw a stone and hit another real estate agent. But the reality is that I say this to Chad and he says it to me. Like sometimes this business is kind of lonely, you know, like because everyone, like you said, like everyone's figuring out their own stuff and navigating the challenges of that. And it's just so important to have your tribe. And that's something that I'm actively, you know, always adding to is like who's in that tribe of like other successful business owners, women or otherwise, you know, that just kind of at least get it.
I completely agree. And, you know, the other thing we haven't talked about too is like the ego piece, you know, very much like the Brene Brown stuff of, okay, so you quit your job and you've lost your title. You've lost your identity.
For real.
If you're going to pivot, you've now failed, right? Like it's good to actually fail fast in entrepreneurship, but everyone's like, fail fast, pivot. And like, there are real emotions behind that.
Right. It's really easy to say, but like when you wake up with your face on the concrete, it still hurts.
It does. And to go from like stability and knowing what you're doing to like being awful at everything.
Yeah, for sure.
but that's how you get good at things, is you have to like start. You have to start at the bottom, you have to suck for a while, and then over time, like I'm finally at the place where I'm like, oh man, this whole running a business thing is not bad. But if you had ever told me that 2 years ago, I would have been like, you crazy, like
It's
never
amazing.
gonna feel that way.
Well, it's so empowering to run a business, but it is tough when, just like you said, like when you give up that brand and you give up all the back end support and you are looking at yourself in the mirror every day. It's you, and all the successes are yours, but the responsibility is yours, the failures are yours, the learning is yours, the ownership is yours, the finances are it's all yours,
Yeah, it's like you're doing receipts or you're hiring someone to do receipts. And decisions get so interesting too when it becomes like your business, like strategic investments. I feel like things hurt more. It's like one thing to be in a company and be like, oh, let me make this investment in this personal development program. Whereas now it's like, this will be a very important budget item. Am I committed? Do I have the capacity? Like, is this right?
For sure.
It's amazing. It's so empowering. And it's also just, it's a whole nother ball game.
It is, but man, it's awesome. And just like you said, when you compare it with your passions, and then you're surrounded by amazing people doing that kind of work, like what you've created, I'm sure it's really, really powerful. I'm so excited that you've been able to create that.
I love it. And I think the other thing too is it was a whole journey of me finding happiness, which was also like, the like other part, after year one, it was so interesting. I was on a walk with my husband and he goes, I thought you quit your job to be happy. And I'm like, oh, oh, he's like, you work 100 hours a week and you're definitely not happy. And and it's hard because there's seasons, right? Like when you start out, there's just so much to get done. You're like, I need a website. I need my brand. I need, you're building your reputation. You're out there networking. And I think there are those phases. And there's also, you own everything, you own everything, and you can make space to chill and you can make space to adjust. And, I believe in excellence. And also I believe in boundaries. Like I am not the quickest responder unless you text me, but I'm okay with it. Like I let my clients know. I'm like, if you want someone who's going to respond in 5 minutes, not your consultant or business coach. Because that's how I show up. What is cool is like when you learn how you work best, then you can truly, like I show up in my best when I work with people because I own my life. I manage my energy. I manage my schedule. I mean, I work more, but then also sometimes I don't because I don't have to.
Right.
Which is amazing. It truly is. It's been life-changing.
It really is. I completely agree 100% with everything that you've said.
Yeah, I know. I didn't realize how much entrepreneurship was going to be about leadership. And I had learned about that, but it was a whole nother, again, level of leadership when I was responsible for me. I was responsible for decisions. I had to like swallow my pride and start from the bottom, and it wasn't always pretty.
It's not always pretty for sure. But like, I agree with you that like you show up exactly as who you are. It gives you that opportunity, right? When you work for someone else, you kind of have to show up how they want you to show up. But when you get to own your own business, you get to show up how you are. And we are imperfect people. So that's what I mean. Like the hard things show up too, but the things that you want to own and shape, you get to fully own and shape them, and you get to really be exactly who you are, not who someone else's, goals or priorities or what their culture is, but yours. You get to define it for yourself. It's just extremely powerful and humbling. And the leadership piece, the personal leadership piece, is huge. And now as we're growing out our team, we're paying people salaries and making our dream big enough that their dream fits inside of it too. And what are the ways in which they want to grow, and what are the things that they're passionate about, and helping them to achieve those things. It's a massive responsibility, but it's so exciting. I am perfectly imperfect, that's for damn sure, but but loving it and up for the challenge.
And I love that. And the other thing too is, I mean, and this is where we start in FISO, is I'm like, what do you want? And I mean, I ask entrepreneurs, I'm like, the market has changed. What do you want? Like, do you want to go get a job right now? Like, it's okay also for the definition of success to change. Maybe you got an entrepreneurship and you're like, I miss a team, or maybe your family right now needs stability and you need to go get a job. FISO, I'm like, we will not judge you. Like, I mean, I can't promise that not everyone will judge you, but like, but the intent is you get to define success. Yeah. And that involves like going deep and then making sure that your business is going to work for you. Because otherwise, like, if you don't have product founder fit, or, if you're not going to ultimately, like, if it turns out a lot of amazing doers become business owners, but to be a business owner, you need to be a doer and a manager and a leader and a visionary, and that's not for everyone. And that's fine. One of the, success from FISO was, that's what we call figure shit out in shorthand, is one entrepreneur sold her business. She was like, I really just want to do what I'm good at. Yeah. Like a good out piece, and that meant like letting someone else do it. They were like, I just want stability. I want to like focus on what I'm great at. Like, I don't want that burden. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, that's so great, because that's them living their best life, and whereas, others are like, no, I'm going to stay the course. Like, this sucks. I'm eating my vegetables, but I know that long-term, this is what's going to be best for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about like connecting with your why and what you want. We talk a lot. There's a class Chad and I have taken a bunch of times. We've taken it because it's one of those classes that every time you take it, you're in a different place in your business. So even though the content is the same, you're applying it in different ways based on where you are. And it's called BOLD, and it's an acronym for Business Objective, a Life by Design. And, we talk about that a lot. What is our life by design? What does that mean? And I promise you, when COVID happened, it changed, and it's still evolving. What does a life by design look like? We set out our goals this year to sell 100 houses. And we've scaled that back purposefully, because we're seeing this COVID situation as a time to actually spend more time with our family. And these are precious years with our kids, so even though we wanted to double our business, we've doubled it every year for the last 4 years. We're okay with smaller growth this year, because our life by design is spending time with our family, and that's a choice that we get to make, and we're proud of that. We're really proud of that.
Oh, that gives me chills, because it makes sense. Like, there's seasons. You took this challenging season and realized, because I mean, it's so easy to get stuck in the oh, my top line, like we're gonna grow and achieve. And if you can learn to really think, no, what do I actually want?
Right.
It makes perfect sense. You'd want to spend more time with your family and go, well, market changed.
Right.
Let's adjust.
Wake up one day and feel that way. I mean, I honestly felt like the reality is that the process of figuring that out was me waking up feeling like, why am I not so motivated to hit my goal right now? And seeing my goal get farther and farther ahead of me, and feeling like, why am I not chasing that horse that is rapidly outpacing me? Like, why am I not doing that? And having to go through the process of, oh, it's because that's not my horse anymore. This is my new horse. This one right here is because I'm choosing to spend more time with my kids. So, I mean, it's not always, we don't wake up with these moments of clarity, right? Sometimes.
Oh no. It's actually really bumpy. One of my moments of clarity is, so my husband's a chemical engineer, and last fall he got a job at a startup. So he went from corporate, killing it, top of his game, to startup. And it's also a like world-changing startup. It's called Vestaron. They're creating pesticides that are like safe.
Oh,
Yeah. And then the really fun fact that they don't talk about in their branding is it comes from like a peptide from spider venom.
interesting.
Really cool. Yeah. So I was like, this is so cool. This company's awesome. But all of a sudden he entered my world. He's like, oh my, I mean, he was working all the time. And I'm like, as you might guess, in my startup phase, I was not always the best spouse. And, last fall, it was a time for me to go, all right, I'm going to step things up. Like, I'm going to make dinners now. Like, I'm going to clean up more than you do. Like, I'm going to do more chores. And at first I was very like, I'm not going to act like I was like, oh, this is so great. Instead, I was like, like, I don't want to do more chores. Like, it feels like gender roles now. And, but you have to, that's the ego, right? Like, but since then, I'm now happy. Like, I'm really happy. I'm like, I can help him like that. He's a great spouse. Like, he's kicking ass and saving the world too. Mm-hmm. I have the flexibility to do this. It's great. And I mean, I'm still working really hard. I just do more chores too.
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. I was just watching a video with one of my kids recently. I don't know. I can't even think of what the show is. It's some YouTuber. These YouTubers are probably making bank right now, by the way, because of all the kids like mine that are spending all their time watching this stuff. But we're watching some YouTuber who was like, he went into this lab in Australia where they get spiders and snakes to bite onto like fake prey, and then they harvest their venom and they use it to make anti-venom. Just cool. Lives from like the most poisonous snakes and spiders in the world. So it was really fascinating, and I was glad to see that my kids are actually watching something somewhat, educational instead of, watching like 22-year-old guys playing Minecraft. I feel like that's probably 90% of their time. Like at least the 10% is watching something scientific and useful. But yeah, that's really, really fascinating. I love that idea because when I worked in RTP, I was in charge of all of our bees. I love bees.
Yeah. And it is pretty funny because the company's like, we're not going to be telling these farmers that like,
yeah,
venom pesticide, it is changed. It's put into a peptide. It's proven to be safe. However, I personally,
I think it's amazing. I bet the farmers would really appreciate it.
According to your marketing research now. Yeah, their tagline is the power of peptides. It's very scientific. It's more like just safe pesticides that work.
They come from really curly, hairy spiders. That's so funny. Well, if anyone's interested in working with you, and no doubt they are after listening to you because you're amazing, who is your ideal client? And I say that in a broad sense for your like consulting, but also FISO. Like, who do you like to work with?
I love that question.
How do they find you?
Oh, about your customer. I can't say that enough. Anyways, I digress. My ideal client is mission-driven leaders that are at an inflection point. And so in mission-driven, I mean that broad. Like, you do not need to be like perfect. If you are a local business that cares about like serving your local community, if you in any way think business is about more than making a profit,
yeah,
that counts to me. Mm-hmm. And within that realm, it's, an inflection point can be either you want to start a company, or it can mean that you've started one and now you're kind of ready to get to the next level, that you want strategic support. You might want branding and marketing support. You like want to launch something new and you're just like you either want a second opinion or you just want a marketer to tell you what to do. I love working with them.
What can they expect working with you?
Yeah. So with FISO, it's a very specific program. It's laid out on the website. But a lot of the work that I do with my consulting clients typically starts with some form of research and then some kind of workshop where we get to meet, we get to do a deep dive into what you do and why you do it and what your customers care about. And then based on that, I develop a plan. Mm-hmm. And we come up with a plan, usually like, where should you start? Where is this customer going to be at? How should you talk to them? What does your brand need to look like? And maybe you've already nailed it, and it's just, you need help with the like, where do I go? How do I go about it? Or you might be like, you might need even like more help with the actual strategic branding piece. I love to like dive into websites and figure out, like, based on our strategy, like, is your website saying what it should? Are your customers going to come and like understand what you do on any platform they're probably on? Are you reaching them? Like, what is the best strategy?
Cool. And what are your websites? How do they find you there?
Ooh, okay. So for the FISO Accelerator, it's www.fysoaccelerator.com. And that's like accelerator with, it's like ACC. No, I'm not, I'm like, we're in a happy hour. I'm not going to spell the rest, but there's two C's. Accelerator.
Accelerator, Google it.
Yeah. So FISOaccelerator.com, also ChristinaMarieNoel.com. That's another way to get the FISO website. And then for Noel Co, it's Noel and Co. So like and spelled out .io.
Cool.
Which is like my techie address.
I love it. And so what's next for you? What are your goals? Where do you go from here?
I mean, it's so interesting because it's like such a big question.
Yeah.
My goal is just more marketing clients, building FISO. I have a lot of thoughts about what is this program going to become? How do I grow it? It's so interesting you mentioned Brene Brown, because it's like, when I look at FISO, I feel like FISO creates a space, the same space that Brene Brown has created in conversation and entrepreneurship. Yes. And I know the brand works. Also, I know it's diverse. Like, we have like a majority women and like a very representative group of like new majority founders. And, this needs to be everywhere. Like, I want people to know that this resource exists and build that brand. And so there's that. Plus, my one-on-one clients, that's where I get to go deep, right? Like, I love to like understand your brand, whether that be through consulting or coaching. And then sometimes I get to do photos. That has been like it's so funny because I am big on like, you need to niche. I would rather be known as a marketing strategist and business coach. But one of the coolest things I've done is I've taken a lot of headshots, and it's been so cool to like see how they translate into like people's online brand, which has been cool. Yeah. And then, a lot of that work's meeting people where they're at. Because the big picture vision is I want more successful mission-driven companies, full stop. I want there to be amazing jobs, either ones that you created or that were created thanks to my work, that pay well and like let people have a life. And the only way we're going to do that is if you create a sustainable business model, right? Like, if you don't have a successful business, then you're going to be under-resourced and you're going to have to work your staff like really, really hard. And, I want people to have a holistic life. Yeah. Truly. And I think that there's so much the world needs. And so these organizations have to succeed. And I'm excited to play my part in helping them do that.
Well, I love talking with you. This has been so much fun. I'm so glad that happy hour of all things enabled us to reconnect. It's been super fun listening to you talk about your passions. You're so inspiring and powerful, and no doubt affecting a lot of people with the work that you're doing. So,
and likewise, it has been so amazing to watch you build bright ideas. And you're doing it.
Make it happen.
I know. And it's so like, and I'm so happy we reconnected. I'm like, I might have to enter your vault.
Yes.
Here.
Well, we'll do this again. Cheers. Happy Thursday. And thank you so much. We will put Christina's information in the comments to this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Join us again next week. And thank you again, Christina.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.